There was Arnold Schwarzenegger as an actor.
There was, yes.
You agree?
I did notice that too, yeah.
So far? Okay. So he's this huge, muscular man who was a bodybuilder before he was an actor. I actually don't know how he got into acting. I don't know if it was a deliberate thing or if somebody said, hey, you should do acting because we need some, like a bodyguard thing. I don't know how that worked out.
He wanted to be an actor and he went to Hollywood and they needed a Herculean type character for the movie Hercules in New York. And he auditioned. He was the biggest because I think he had already been Mr. Universe at that point. And so I think it's the only movie that he's ever done where he was dubbed through the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So there was something about him that we liked.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling it's that he was this giant muscular dude, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't his acting chops.
Nope.
Maybe it was. I don't know. Maybe it was the combination. But okay, so we had that guy, and he became this monster movie star who was, for some reason, beloved as an actor, but also totally made fun of, and kind of existed in this kind of Keanu Reeves space where we love him, but we all think he's a terrible actor type of thing.
Right.
And so he became governor, whatever. And then we have now, I would say, The Rock. And before, there were sort of mini versions of him, like Vin Diesel and people who tried to be that, like Mark Wahlberg. And, they were all sort of known for being muscular, and that was their thing. But they were actors. And now The Rock has sort of taken over that role as the huge muscular guy who's not that great of an actor, but is one of the most popular actors right now. And I'm wondering why. What is it about that makes us where he's getting all this work as like granted, it's all the same kind of, two types of movies. There's the action, big, huge action movie, and also the fish out of water movie where he's still an action star, but he's a babysitter for a day and hijinks ensue. Mm-hmm. Vin Diesel did one. Obviously Schwarzenegger did one. The Rock has done one. They all have to do that movie, apparently,
right. Mm-hmm.
as a rite of passage. But why? why do we love muscular men? What is it about that? And dudes love it. It's not like this is a female thing. In fact, I think a lot of females probably don't like them as much.
I don't know. I mean, obviously I can't speak to that side of it, but if I had to guess, I would say that it's more. Well, first off, it's huge explosions and dudes punching people and shooting people. It's like what we did with our toys when we were younger. It's just on the screen, and so it's fun to watch that played out in quote unquote real life. But I think also part of it is like we want to do those things too, and like we can't, but it's fun to live by proxy through this other guy.
Right, but why does he have to be this giant muscular guy? Why is that a requirement? So I'm kind of going back to comic books where every superhero in a comic book is gigantically muscular, almost impossibly muscular. And so I'm thinking that has something to do with it, but I don't think that's a cause and effect, that comic books characters were that way, and so therefore we like our action stars to look that way. I'm wondering if there's something as to the reason that comic book characters were originally drawn that way. Is there something going on there?
Yeah. I mean, I'm positive psychologically that there is something to it. We've always been impressed by bodybuilders. I mean, that's where Superman got his physique from, and like specifically the underwear over his suit. It was because that's what a bodybuilder wore. Because you're right. Like if you think about Superman's origin, he doesn't have to be muscular, and
in fact, he wouldn't be muscular.
And if you and thinking about Aquaman's physique and biology, he would not be muscular either. Like his whole society would have developed just strong, tight muscles to swim through the water anyway. Like they wouldn't need muscle mass to do so. In fact, that would be impeding on them.
Well, it wouldn't happen because all of the superheroes have superhuman strength, or the ones that have superhuman strength still have big muscles.
Right.
And a good analog to that is astronauts. Astronauts go to space and immediately their body starts to atrophy.
Right.
And you are a superhero in space.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You could lift literally lift the space station,
Right.
right? And or you could move it. Let's say you can have an effect on this giant mass, and
right.
yet
You
they
push
have
it in
to
one direction
exercise.
as you went in the other one, but you would both
Right.
move. Yeah.
Yeah, and yet they have to exercise for 2 hours a day just to maintain weight, right?
Right.
So that would happen to a superhero because it's kind of the same thing that happened to them. So
It's true.
yeah, so they'd have to be literally exercising half the day. I mean, I guess that's not true for Batman and
Captain America. Right. I mean, there are those who, but Iron Man doesn't need to be buff. I don't think he is. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely not in the same physique as Batman and Superman. But
yeah, I mean, I guess the
Thor is
I
another
don't
one
know
that
if-
wouldn't have to be.
I guess maybe the glib answer is that we want our heroes to be strong, and because we want them to protect us, I guess. And so the way to outwardly express that is having them have big muscles.
Right.
But maybe it's as simple as that.
Right. I mean, and I may be reading too much into your question, but the way I inferred it was why. Obviously, there's the physical aspect of just, somebody who is physically strong, and they're going to be strong and take care of you, which actually isn't entirely true. Like, again, if you have all those muscles and you've been getting those muscles through like push-ups or anything that did not require a grip of any sort, and then you try to do weightlifting of any kind, you won't be able to because you don't have a grip to hold the weight that your muscles can handle. So just because you look strong doesn't mean you can do anything with that strength. But having said that, like obviously you see somebody who is strong, you assume that they're strong. But like why do we need the person to look strong for us to know that they are strong? Like Thor is a god. We know that he's a god. Like why do we need him to be jacked for us to be like, oh, look how strong he is?
Yeah, and I think we moved away from that a little bit because if you look at Smallville, the emblematic show of superheroes, Smallville,
Right.
at least the beginning, he wasn't this huge buff dude.
Right.
He was probably looked a little bit older than a freshman in high school, but he wasn't jacked,
Right.
and rightly so. He wasn't supposed to be,
Right.
but he was still super strong, and I think he was super fast.
Yeah.
And, so I think that that's the right way to go. And the Flash is, I don't know what the comic book reason that he can move so fast. I don't know if it's because he's super strong, but his legs aren't like these bulging giant things where he can, he can run really fast. He's just a regular kind of weedy dude, So I think we're going in the right direction with that. But there is something about an outward expression of strength where you want them to be imposing in a certain way.
Well, and even if you use that logic and you took, I mean, I think it depends on the character, because if you took that away from Superman, if you just made, even if you like kept him in the same suit or, like you redesigned him in a way that his physique looked okay in whatever super suit he was in, people would not accept him to be Superman because he wouldn't look strong enough.
Right. And I guess my argument to that is, well, when he picks the car up and throws it at somebody, that's a good indication.
He looks pretty
of
strong
how
there, right?
Yeah, he looks pretty strong. And when bullets are bouncing off of him, that's a pretty good indication.
Right.
So, I think that's it's just culturally ingrained that our superheroes and therefore our actors are super huge. Like the bigger you are, the stronger you are.
Right.
When, as you said, that's not really the case. Like Bruce Lee, he could.
Oh my gosh, he was amazing. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he would whoop anybody's ass, right?
Yeah.
And he probably was 140 soaking wet.
Right.
And if there's one, who would I rather go up against in a fight, The Rock or Bruce Lee? I would pick The Rock every time.
Right.
I don't know why I'd be doing this multiple times. One time would probably be enough.
Well, the first time you're going to go against The Rock because you know Bruce Lee's faster. The second time you're going to go against The Rock because you have brain damage.
No, it's not about being. Bruce Lee could punch through concrete from 2 inches away.
Right.
It's not about speed. Like it's about everything. Like he's like a loaded knife.
Mm-hmm.
What?
How? So hang on. Let's go down that road a minute. How does a loaded knife work?
Well, it has all the fixins on it.
Oh,
It has a gun on the knife.
okay.
So, but just to be clear, it's not a knife on a gun like a bayonet.
Right.
The gun is on the knife in case you need it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how. I get in case you need it. So I guess it would be part of the handle. Like the handle to the knife is also the handle to the gun. Like the hilt to the knife is actually the gun part.
Okay, so it's got just a giant hilt on it that has. I could see like two revolvers as the hilt.
There you go, facing both ways.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what kind of weapon that would require. I don't know. For me, some reason, a knife is scarier than a gun.
Well, Nick Swartzen covered that. A knife is scarier because you're there the whole time.
What do you mean you're there?
Like, somebody can shoot you, and you just be walking down the street and like, bam, what? I just got shot. Oh, my gosh. But, like, with a knife, the person has to be standing there doing it to you the whole time.
Right, that's true. And it's I guess... For some reason, I feel like a gun is more escapable than a knife.
Well, yeah, you miss the bullet. That's the end of it. With a knife, there's so many parts of it that can hurt you.
I mean, the guns that are attached to it,
right? Even if you dodge off to the side and the knife goes by, you still got that gun that's facing you now.
And that's scary. Yeah, yeah. And recoil would be a problem.
Yes, didn't think about that.
I do like the superhero that walks around with this weapon.
Just all kinds of scars on his shoulders.
Training's been a bitch, but I think I figured it out. But anyway, so we have this giant muscular man, but here's the thing. We seem to forego any kind of acting ability for the strong man character. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you think about somebody like Bruce Willis or Mel Gibson, they were kind of superheroes in the movies that they were in, especially in the 80s and 90s.
Right.
And they weren't huge. I mean, they weren't flabby.
Well, yeah, like in the 80s and 90s, we kind of got to an everyman superhero, with like Die Hard and Loaded Weapon.
Lethal Weapon.
There we go.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Mel Gibson kind of embodied that for longer than Bruce Willis did. Bruce Willis started doing less actiony stuff. Well, not really though, did he? He kind of tried to bridge the gap a little bit.
I mean, he definitely switched over to drama, and kind of his drama pieces are so much more different than Mel Gibson's. Like,
yeah, and then Mel Gibson's kind of started directing too,
yeah,
and that changed.
Bruce Willis was always stoic in his drama pieces. Like he just has a very hard time doing any range of emotions in his drama pieces, whereas Mel Gibson had a tendency to be a person, and actually have a range of emotions throughout his movie.
Who else was like that in the 80s and 90s? Was there another?
I'm sure there was.
I can't think of anybody.
But I mean, we going back to the jacked ones, we had Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone. Are there always two? Like right now, there's Vin Diesel and The Rock. Always two there are.
Yeah, I know that people are going to start saying, well, Sylvester Stallone was a good actor. And I don't know if that's true. I think that, first of all, good and bad is kind of that's not a good judgment,
right?
I think.
Right.
It's a bit glib of a judgment because I think Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone, they both chose roles that suited them.
Right.
Because I think in almost every movie that Sylvester Stallone is in, he's kind of playing the same dude.
Yeah.
Right? There's not a lot of range in terms of what he's doing.
Well, I would say Rocky and Rambo are two different characters, but beyond that, like every action hero that he plays is the same action hero. But Rocky and Rambo, he wrote for himself. Well, Rocky for sure, and then Rambo was based off a book, but I think he bought the rights or something, but he penned the script or something like that.
Well, and I think when we think of Rambo, we have that image of him coming out of the water with one of those rotating guns, and like he's a super jacked dude, and he's got the headband on, he's in the jungle. That's not what the original Rambo looked like, if you've ever seen the first Rambo.
Right.
In fact, I mean, he's never naked, he never has to tie back. He's just sort of a kind of a tortured vet.
Yep.
And I think he's like naked once, but it's not gratuitous.
Right.
And so I think they're the same in that sense, where Rocky, of course, was also buff, but not gratuitously. So I think, though, in the sense of them being kind of the same character, they were probably closer to being the same character in Rocky 1 and in Rambo 1, but then they kind of diverged drastically after that. But after The Rock, like I think after him, is there going to be another strongman type of guy? Because I wouldn't even say that somebody like who plays Thor,
Chris Hemsworth,
yeah,
Patrick Dempsey,
Patrick Warburton. I don't think he's not in that ilk of just giant strongman.
No.
None of the Avengers really are.
No,
I don't
right?
think. Yeah,
right. I agree. Well, yeah, and I mean, even Vin Diesel, not so much. He keeps taking on those roles, but it's almost like they felt like Dwayne Johnson was going to be too big, so they wanted to dial it back a bit, and so they got this other guy who doesn't necessarily have the physique, but he absolutely has the voice for it.
Yeah, and you could argue that someone like The Rock, we keep calling him The Rock, that's not really his name anymore. Dwayne Johnson his physique is closest to how comic book characters are represented in comic books.
Right. Yeah.
But I think one of the reasons is he's not that good of an actor, right? It just isn't. I mean, he's adequate for the roles he takes, but I think Chris Hemsworth is a fabulous actor. At least he is in what is called upon him for these movies that he's been in.
Right. See, and I would disagree. I mean, maybe it's just how charismatic I find The Rock, but I genuinely think that he is a good actor. Like, I don't know if I could ever see him. No, I could absolutely see him do it, but I don't know if he's good enough to be in just a straight dramatic piece where, you know, his physique has nothing to do with it. But for all the movies that he, you know, that you said like that he's called upon to do, regardless of what movie it is, he can always hit whether or not it's a comedy action or it's a dramatic action. But it's like he's not playing himself all the time, I don't think.
Yeah, I kind of think about when I see him, when it's time to be dramatic and time to be poignant for The Rock, I always see the seams with him. I can see him acting. I think he's fine when he's being kind of fun and comedic. You know, I think that's probably what he's best at.
Yeah.
But when he needs to be actually threatening and not just funny threatening, you know, but just actually threatening and actually be mad or angry, I can always see it. I can always see the smile right behind. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it just doesn't feel like I don't buy it.
Right.
And I think with somebody like Chris Hemsworth, or you ever see the movie Sunshine? It's a science fiction movie.
No, but I know which one you're talking about. Yeah, with Cillian Murphy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cillian Murphy and the other Chris Captain
Evans?
America. Yeah. He's in that, and you would not recognize him.
Yeah.
Right?
I didn't even know he was in it. Okay.
Yeah, so that's sort of what I mean, is that, you know, he's still playing kind of the good-looking guy, but it's not like you're saying, oh, this is also Captain America. I see where Captain America came from, you know? And with The Rock, it's kind of that way. You know, there's not a lot of deviation from, and granted, that's not what they're paying him for, is to be a dramatic actor. I get it. So, I don't know. I don't, that's what I mean when I say I don't think he's that good of an actor. I don't buy the whole range of human emotion from him.
Right.
Although he is really funny when he's like being a dick, but a funny dick.
Right. Well, yeah. So I just wonder if it's going to come with time. Like, I don't know if you've seen any of Schwarzenegger's more recent flicks, but I feel like his dramatic side has drastically improved.
I'm sure it has. Yeah. I mean, I think that The Rock or Dwayne The Rock Johnson, I think he's improved a lot too.
Mm-hmm. Which just comes from practice and experience and, you know, all that.
Yeah. And just a confidence of being in front of a camera.
Right.
And not, you know, having to throw a chair at somebody. You know?
Right.
But yeah. I guess it's not that hard of a thing to break down, is why we want just giant dudes, not even just imposing kind of figures, which you could argue that Bruce Willis and Mel Gibson are, in the sense of they're good looking. They're not weedy, you know, but just giant people that we want that. We want more of that.
Right.
You know, like, give us more muscles. You know, it just seems slightly homoerotic in a way.
Right.
Yep. Because it's not like they're in a suit.
Right.
Where we can see their rippling muscles under the fabric. They find reasons to take their clothes off.
Right.
I'm really like, yeah, more of that.
I would love to see movies that kind of push that, you know, like there's a scene where the guy has to get like all the way down to his underwear, and he has to do like the whole thing through just his underwear. I'm already at 20%, dude. I got to do something about my phone.
It's the intensity of the conversation.
Right. My phone's just having a hard time keeping up. What was I going to say? And then you know, in the sequel, the same thing. Something happens where he has to get down to his underwear, but now it's raining, so now his underwear is wet. And then in the third one, like, he has to be nude, but it's only his butt. You know, like, how far can this be pushed where people, like, and it's still just a straight action movie. You know, like, nothing is played homoerotically or, you know, hinting at anything. Like, people might comment on it, but not in, like, a sexual way. Like, it's just Like he is trying to save the day. He just has to be in his underwear, and then it's just how it's raining where he happens to be in his underwear, and then like he forgets his underwear or something like that, So like at what point would people stop enjoying the movie and be uncomfortable?
I don't know. It's a good question. When you think about Bruce Willis and Mel Gibson, they played characters who you believed could physically die. And were, by the end of Die Hard, and every single Die Hard, Bruce Willis is like a bloody pulp.
Yeah.
And Mel Gibson, kind of that way. I'm trying to remember, like in Lethal Weapon movies, like he's clearly could die, and you believe that. Whereas with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Dwayne Johnson and Vin Diesel, they get little gashes, but and they get hit with cars, and they get back up. And they're like, it's like it's not. You're just like, okay, so this is just make believe then,
right? Yeah, and that's
but maybe that's why we like somebody like Bruce Willis and Mel Gibson, is that they're a little bit more human,
right?
I mean, they're still superhuman, but they're leaning toward human.
Well, yeah, like I feel like the level of surreality matches the person that's involved. Like if you look at Mel Gibson, he's not going to survive a car hit, at least not just get up and shake it off. Like he's going to be bloody and he's going to be limping for the rest of the movie. But if Dwayne gets hit by a car, like
the car is dented.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say if it moves him, like he just like he gets up off the ground and looks mad that the car stopped what he was trying to do.
Yeah. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah,
we want our humanistic characters, but we also want our superheroes.
Yeah,
and that's why Arnold Schwarzenegger got into the movie business.
It's a good button. And it actually does. It all ties together. Like it's not random.
Yeah, exactly.